All right, guys. This is going to be part 2. Hopefully, there's only 2 parts to this. But we stopped off talking about a chancellor and what the chancellor's job is. Like I said, is to be the face of the operation. They're making laws and they're really carrying it out. So no, it's not just them, making these decisions, but what they are doing is being the face of it and really making sure it's getting carried out as most efficiently as possible. Transfers the Weimar Republic into the Third Reich, a total dictatorship. Looking into what this republic was, it was established as a representative democracy which aimed to give genuine power to all German adults. However, of course, it had major flaws that contributed to its downfall in 1934. It was a thing from 1919 to 1933, the period after World War I, until the rise of Nazi Germany. It was named after the town of Weimar, where Germany's new government was formed by a National Assembly after Kaiser Wilhelm II kind of got out of line. Germany under Nazi rules. So we're moving on to slide number 4. Hitler wanted to create a master race where the Aryan people would be considered a pure race and superior to other people, which we've talked about. Anti-Semitism, or the prejudice against Jews that had been around for centuries. The Jewish people, keep in mind, this is not an idea that just came along for whatever reason. They, for a long, long time, were felt to be inferior to a lot of people. The Jews, dating back to 2,000 years ago, have always been persecuted. The people of Israel have always been persecuted. The country of Israel, and it's ironic because from a Christian standpoint, which is why I feel like it's important for all Christians to support Israel, a country like Israel. And this is completely, I'm not saying this is how it should go. I'm just saying this is how I feel, and this is what I feel the Bible tells us. To support them. Those are God's chosen people. And I think that's a lot of reasons. A lot of people, I think, feel threatened by that, and therefore there's a lot of prejudice against it. All right, we're going to move on to Nazi leaders. Dr. Joseph Goebbels was head of the Nazi propaganda ministry and controlled all communications. He also encouraged book burning to eliminate other ideas. So, obviously this is the guy, whenever you're in charge of the propaganda and all the communications, that gives you so much power, because really that's where most people get their information from. You're usually influenced by an idea based on not really, a lot of times I feel like it's subconscious. The music you listen to, or the things you look at on a consistent basis, or the things that are just constantly put into your ears, even though you might not realize that you're paying attention to it, you actually are. And these thoughts kind of get lodged in your mind, and whenever you're told this and you're forced to listen to this all day, all night, every day of the year, you're going to eventually believe it, and that's kind of the power of the mind. And once again, going back to the genius and madness behind the Nazi regime, a lot of these strategies that they had really, really worked. The book burnings, this included the Bible. Anytime you can take away literature, keep in mind, a lot of people didn't really have television. Television wasn't a thing. Even radio was a thing, but music is not what it is today. It's not even what it was in the 1960s. So anytime you can eliminate anything that someone can get a hold of that might encourage them to think in a way that you don't want them to, is a big, big deal. You can look up pictures of these book burnings, and you can see this was a national event. You know, the whole town came out for this type of thing. A lot of them were forced to do it, and a lot of them learned to love it. Heinrich Himmler, the guy who we talked about earlier, the guy who was quoted by saying, "All Poles will disappear from the world. It is essential that the great German people should consider it as a major task to destroy all the Poles." He led the SS being the Nazi secret police. These are the guys that you are afraid of. These are the guys that are going to really carry out the regime. They formed death squads known, and like I said, they were known. Whenever you saw the SS and you saw the uniform and the way they carried themselves, these were people you were very, very afraid of. And they, like I said, they were in charge. They were going to kill you. They were either going to take you away and you were eventually going to die, or they were going to kill you as quickly as possible. Very scary men. He was also, Heinrich Himmler, one of the architects of the Holocaust and death camps. So this is a guy who had a lot to do with, you know, really orchestrating this whole thing, and how do we do it, and what would be the most effective way to do it. And that's a military thing, you know, strategy. How do we strategize to ensure that this works? Adolf Eichmann, he also helped to organize the Holocaust, was in charge of transporting Jews from ghettos to concentration camps. This is a big role, because obviously if we cannot get them to where we need them to go, then, you know, this is never going to work. But the ability to say, okay, look, we're going to come in full swing and we'll take them out in groups of this, this, and this. We'll move them here. You know, what time of the day do we do it? Things like that. So obviously a guy with a lot of power and a very scary dude. The Nuremberg Laws. If you're following along, you should be on slide 8. Passed in 1935. Said anyone with any Jewish blood would be considered a Jew. So this does not mean that you have to be full-blooded, going back to the interracial thing we were saying, or even the divorce thing we were saying. You do not have to be a full-blooded Jew to be persecuted here. You do not have to be a full-blooded African-German citizen. You can just be married to someone, essentially. So they're saying anyone, if you have any type of contact with the Jewish people, you are now considered the enemy. Further restrictions were placed and persecution of the Jews increased, going back to the death or divorce and sterilization that we talked about earlier. And this is how the numbers, you know, really like skyrocketed in terms of death and destruction. Moving on. The Night of Broken Glass. It took place in November of 1938. Jewish stores, houses, and synagogues were systematically destroyed. It marks the beginning of the widespread government-led violence against Jews. This is the first time that this is really being looked at as a national epidemic. Is no longer just a small time idea. This is now, you have the government on your side. You have the people that are supposed to be protecting you against you, and they're going to come in and they're going to destroy everything you have. And like I said, it really did mark the beginning, because, you know, once you get the government on your side and you get the lawmakers and the politicians on your side, you're golden. But the Night of Broken Glass, very symbolic of the destruction of it. This lasted for about 2 days. In some cases, it lasted up to 2 weeks. Jews in Germany. Moving on to slide number 10, if you're following along. the Jewish registry created where all people with Jewish ancestry had to register with the government. So if you had any type of Jewish bloodline, you had to go and you would be registered. You had a number. Jews had to wear the Star of David badge everywhere they went. The Star of David, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it, but that is the symbol of the Jewish culture on the Israeli flag, the flag of Israel. You see it on there, and it's the upside down stars. It has, or the two upside down triangles. It creates a six star flag for you. And, they were stitched much like the triangles on the homosexuals. This star was stitched onto your clothing. They wanted you to stand out. They did not want anyone to blend in. This is a big thing. That way, when people saw you, they knew, they knew it was okay. Hey, I can be, just horrible to this person, because why are they even walking around? Why are we even breathing the same air? And that's really the idea it boiled down to. And of course, they were forced to live in isolated ghettos. The ghettos being these run-down, destroyed communities where there wasn't a lot of resources, wasn't a lot of water, food, areas to bathe, shops to go to, anything like that. So a lot of people were being starved and really left in a desolated area, which of course is going from a morale standpoint, it's going to draw you down. You're going to feel so isolated and so upset by this that, really is going to get you down. And that's really the key. And that was the key to a lot of the Nazi regime. It was not necessarily the physical side of it, but it was the mental side of it. How can we mentally break someone down? The final solution. That sentence has always scared me when you think about the power it holds. It was a plan developed in 1942 to eliminate all Jews from Europe. This is the area of the Holocaust that really included murdering people and isolating them and starving them and, all these horrible things. The Jewish people from across Europe were taken to concentration camps, and in the camps they were used for hard labor or killed. So you were brought in to be a slave. The camps, you should be on slide 12. In the picture here, you see the bunks, plywood and 4x4s, right? No mattresses, no pillows. Even if you're not immediately dying and you are going into the slave labor, you're coming back and you're being cramped in these bunks with no soft surface to lie your head on, no blankets, anything like that. So you're just laying there cramped up all day, which, physically it's going to take such a toll on your body. Anytime you just look at these pictures of the bunks and the way these people slept and were forced to be cramped in to such a tight, isolated area, it's just horrible, horrible. A lot of these concentration camps could be classified as extermination camps. And they were set up to kill a mass number of Jewish people. Dr. Joseph Mengele carried out experiments on Jewish people at Auschwitz. Joseph Mengele, right? I'm going to give you a little background on this guy. He was known as the Angel of Death. The Angel of Death. The New York Times has a really good article if you want to read it. And it's titled, "How Did Joseph Mengele Become the Evil Doctor of Auschwitz?" And he really embodies the idea of evil. And everyone, feared this guy because what he would do is, like I said, he was in charge of all these science experiments and just all these ideas of, okay, how do we quickly and efficiently eliminate this entire population? He would come in and he would, really point people out. One by one, he would walk and he would just, with a flick of the finger, just say, hey, you. So, he was someone to be scared. And the fact that he made it such a personal idea or such a personal interaction made him even more evil, in my opinion. The fact that he was willing to let you know, yeah, I'm the guy doing this, and I don't care what you think about me, really embodies evil. Like I said, he would conduct all of his infamous race-inspired medical experiments. This included those who were disabled, conjoined twins, fraternal twins. The things he would do, and I'm not really going to get into it because it's pretty grotesque. If you want to look into it yourself, feel free to. But just horrible stuff. He was imprisoned after the war, but he managed to escape, like many Nazis did, and he escaped to South America and prolonged successful evasion from capture countries like Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. So now you actually have this fear and mystique about someone because you don't really know, hey, like whatever happened to this guy? He just kind of escaped and they never really caught him. He would eventually die. You can look him up. But really, adding that mystique, I mean, how did this guy escape? How did a lot of these people escape? And, and it's really one of the tragedies of history. These are the names, the following slides are the names that should be included on your notes. You'll see the box where it says included ... You should fill this in with these names of these camps. Dachau, Chelmo, and Buchenwald, the Bergen-Belsen. Once again, these pictures grotesque. You see the mass graves here of all the bodies. You see essentially these Jewish slaves, how they have just been drawn up from being starved. Once again, they're in the bunks. As you can see, they're naked because that was a big thing too. Also, how do we make this person feel so vulnerable? And when you shaved someone's head and you made them walk around naked and you starved them, it just made them feel so helpless. Auschwitz. This is the big one, right? We've talked about. Everyone's pretty much seen the pictures, I would think. Here you see men, women, everybody, the head shaved, the dark clothing, those that completely naked underneath, or they were just naked in general, going back to that feeling of helplessness. Rescue and resistance is what we are going to. This is slide 19. Underground resistance movements were formed to assist Jews in escaping. The residents of Le Chambon-sur-Largue, a village in the south of France, helped thousands of Jews escape to freedom. So, of course, and everyone says, oh, why wasn't anyone doing things? Well, yes, all these Allied forces were gathering in, and they were attempting in some way, shape, or form to assist. But once again, you had to be very strategic with the way you did it. Here you see more pictures. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, April 19th, 1943. 750 Jews were able to hold off German soldiers to avoid being taken to the concentration camps. Warsaw being a town in Germany. They would eventually lose the battle, of course, being outmatched and outnumbered. 7,000 were killed and 56,000 were deported. So, I mean, we're looking at over 60,000 people impacted by this one event. Here you see an image of the SS soldiers burning the Warsaw Ghetto. The rescue and resistance, more to it. The White Rose resistance groups distributed anti-Nazi pamphlets. This is something I would really want you to look into on your own. It was led by students Sophie and Hans Skroll. They were caught by German authorities and killed quickly in 1942. But, I've just always thought, hey, like, good on them. how great it is. You have these people that know that they will die for something, but they're willing to die for a cause. The liberation of the camps. Allied forces reached camps starting in the summer of 1944. The Soviet forces, the liberation of Auschwitz and camps in Poland and eastern Germany. And the American forces liberate Buchenwald and camps in the west. So, of course, Russia being on the east, they would come in and they really covered all these small countries and the Eastern Front. And the American forces, and not just the American forces, but also you had assistance from the British that came in, they took on the Western Front. You have some images here that kind of shows you the smiles and the look of joy and relief by a lot of the Jewish captives. The Nuremberg trials. As the war ended, many top Nazis committed suicide because they knew, hey, look, we're done here. 22 major Nazi criminals were tried for their crimes in Nuremberg. Most claimed to be just following orders. And I always find that quote to be so humorous, but not really in the ha-ha way, more in the, hey, look at these guys, you cannot tell me that you just did this because you felt like, oh, I was just following orders. No, you knew what you were doing, and in my personal opinion, you should just be done away with. If you can commit such evil acts and not really feel any remorse and just be able to take that claim and expect it's going to work, then you're a fool. 12 of these men were sentenced to death. Most of them escaped to South America, where they hid for years. Now, this is something, if you are listening, I want you to write it down. This route that they would take, it was known as the rat lines. And what the rat lines were, this is where these Nazi war criminals managed to escape from prisons or whatever, persecution, however, and they would go into the Alps of France, the mountains, and they would go up, over, down, and they'd get on a boat or a plane, some type of transportation, and a lot of them went into South America, countries like Brazil, Paraguay, Chile, all these areas for a long time. And going back to that conspiracy on Hitler, a lot of people felt that Hitler finished out his life in Argentina. And this is an issue. There's a television show, Hunting Hitler. If you want to look into it, I really recommend it. It's got some interesting stuff on there. But this is really something I would look into if I were you. It's really something I want you to educate yourself on, because I'm going to come back to it in the future. Here on slide number 28, you see the effects of the Holocaust. So you see the numbers, you see the death and the alienated people and the percentages. Poland up there at 90, Germany and Austria 90, Bohemia 89. So just horrible stuff, right? And this is all of Europe. This just isn't Nazi Germany. This is countries upon countries upon countries. So it tells you just how this is really just a worldwide pandemic that was going on. Here you see an image of the bodies. Horrible sight. And finally, we're going to close it off there. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Remember, there's a first part, and this will be the second part. Please listen along. Hopefully this helped you out. If you have any comments or concerns, email me, let me know, and I'll get back to you.